I'm like, okay, no, just shake it. See what happens.
All right, just so you know, we're live now. Keep it fun. Okay, we'll just wait for it to actually go live. Go live. Hello. Actually, everything, like your hair, your background, like I feel like we're very similarly set up today.
We are. Got good twinning vibes going on.
That's really funny.
I love it.
All right. So if you're joining us live, looks like there's no one yet, but it always takes a couple of seconds to like, oh, there's 2 people. Okay, great. That means we're really live. Hey, Marie.
We're legit now.
We're doing it. Hi, Sam. Good morning, everyone. If you're joining us live, just say hello in the chat. Just remember, I can't always see your name if you haven't given StreamYard permission for me to see your name. So you might just come up as Facebook user, but I still love you, even though I call you a Facebook user. Hi, Marcia. So a couple of notes, just a few reminders. We have our regular bootcamp coaching call. Keep calling it boot camp. Regular foundations coaching call today at noon, and that's in the Zoom room, like always. So definitely, if you want to join that call, go ahead. It's going to be the same as our regular weekly call. And then we have a special addition to our interview series. Today at 1:30, I'll be interviewing Hannah, a mini boss. She's our favorite 6-year-old who participates in Clutter Boss Academy regularly. Aww. And she's going to share, I know, isn't that cute? Share her thoughts on being a clutter boss. So make sure that if you're around at 1:30 Eastern today, you catch that. The other thing to share is if you're interested in the scholarship into Clutter Boss Academy, make sure you let me know. Email me at jess@prioritizeyoursanity.com. The drawing for that is tomorrow, and we open the doors for Clutter Boss Academy tomorrow also. So, so exciting. Today I am here with the incredibly talented Allison McIntosh. Allison is recently, so Allison and I have been knowing each other for a while, but she recently agreed to join Clutter Boss Academy as our mindset coach. And she's incredible. And I knew she was incredible, but I get all these messages now like, oh my gosh, Allison like solved my issue in like 10 seconds and everyone is crying. Like, hey,
yes.
So I have proof now that she's amazing. Was correct.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm going to let Allison introduce herself, but she's here to share clutter mindset hacks. And we also have a couple of questions for Allison already in advance. So
yeah, awesome. So my mindset is my favorite thing. I believe it is all of our superpower. That it is my favorite thing to say is that you are your own world. Creating a human experience. You're not just a human inside of the world. You're actually a world inside of yourself, creating your experience, because that's the truth of what's really like the reality. We all see, these things that we experience and like we touch with our senses, but the reality is that all the stuff going on inside is what's really running the show. So it's my favorite thing in the world. And I kind of feel like, a detective and that I get to kind of like go in there and look around. And so it's so much fun for me. I started doing mindset. I've actually always been interested in psychology and philosophy and theology and all the things for years and years and years. But just this past year is when I really dug into all the mindset and learning all that stuff. So it's been fabulously fun. It's been the piece that has really clicked all the other pieces into place. And so how much do you want me to just dive right into some of this? Or should we answer questions first?
I should say right now, if you don't have a notepad, you should probably get one, because Allison already said 3 quotable things right in the beginning here. I don't even remember them, but I know I was like, damn, I wish I had my notepad so I could write that down. The other thing is that we did not plan our hair or background together. That was random.
But how perfect is this for your visual enjoyment?
Exactly. But yeah, so Allison, why don't you just dive right in? Give us your mindset hacks. You guys all know that I really, maybe you don't know, but I really strongly believe that if you want to actually, truly, for good, tackle your clutter, you must have that mindset piece. There is no way to maintain this long-term change without the mindset piece. So in Clutter Boss Academy, I had been doing mindset school and teaching about how the brain works. But Allison actually coaches specifically on shifting your mindset. Once you get the shifts, even if you do nothing else, your whole life starts to change. So, okay, I'll stop talking now.
Everything. No, I love you talking. Everything changes when you start to see that you don't just have to look at something the way you've been looking at it the whole time, and you start to realize, there's a choice here. I didn't think I had any choices, and then you start to realize what those spaces and areas look like of, oh, I could be doing this, or I could choose this over here. The whole world opens up. Everything becomes possible. And the understanding of how, like, I am never stuck. I am never trapped. I am never powerless. I am never helpless. Like, just knowing that as a truth, I can tell you that for a fact right now, that is true about every single one of you, because that is the reality. And just to know that, like, let that sit in the back of your mind is like a seed of truth. Even if you don't believe it, it is true. And if you can start to kind of allow that to sit in there a while, you start to see that as a possibility. And that's when things start to really shift. So the principle that I coach off of, which is kind of principles that they're universal principles, but a lot of times we don't understand how it's directly, like, how does that exactly look in my life right now, right? Which is why it takes coaching, just like clutter, everything. But the principles of it are that our actions and the things that we do with our hands, the actions of our life, the behaviors people see, are really just a trickle-down effect of our feelings, which is a trickle-down effect of our thoughts. So they're all connected. And the things that we do, the things that we think we want to do, or the things that we are currently doing, they're all coming from some source. They're not. So when we try to, like, force stuff, and we're like, I must do this, I must do that, that doesn't actually work, because you're trying to force something that's not lining up. And the thing, it's not like carrying enough weight. It's just adding shame and judgment and blame, but it's not carrying enough weight to actually make a change, because it's not moving out of an energy that's in the direction of that change that you want. So you almost learn how to, like, reverse engineer. So, like, what am I, the thing that I ask people all the time is, what are you feeling? Because what you are feeling is the first thing you need to look at. Not what are you doing? What should you be doing? It's what are you feeling? Because what you're feeling is going to, if you told me what you were feeling right now, I could tell you probably what you're doing. I could say, I'm guessing it's going to be this, it's going to be this, it's going to be this. And then we talk that through, because our certain feelings generate certain movements. And I love how you talk about how clutter is, how do you say it?
Clutter is anything that impedes movement in your life.
I love that.
That's my personal definition.
Yes. And it's like the mantra for everything, because your thoughts are clutter as well. And you always say everything is clutter. It's true. You have 60,000 thoughts a day.
And you also make 60,000 decisions a day. So every single thought is a decision, basically.
And every single decision that you're making is coming out of this primal side of your brain that's trying to keep you safe, that's trying to avoid pain, that's trying to keep you efficient. So half of the time, your brain's just spinning out over something that's like, if you just looked at it, oh, as like, this is the primal side of my brain. Thank you, brain. I don't need that right now. I'm going to make this decision. When you just start to understand that you can think about your thinking, you can feel about your feeling, you can be cognizant of your cognition, it's like a whole new world opens up.
Well, Allison, can I stop you for a second and ask you an unplanned and maybe difficult question?
Absolutely. They're my favorite.
So I'm just brought back to my beginning days at, like, really working with people in their homes. And this was when Marie Kondo had just had her first book out. I had gone to her training. I found it to be completely useless. They didn't answer any of my questions. But one of my questions that I asked there, or that I tried to ask there, I submitted and wasn't answered. But then I found a lot of my clients, the feedback I was getting from my clients is, her question is, does it spark joy? And I would have my clients have all their stuff laid out, right? And I would say to them, what sparks joy? And they would say, I have no idea. And one thing that I've noticed from working with lots and lots of people is it's hard to identify emotion. It's hard to feel emotion because you're so overwhelmed and so shut down. And so there's so much stimulation coming in. So what do you do if you can't feel emotion?
If you can't feel emotion, then you look at the actions. So sometimes I don't know what I'm feeling. So I'm like, okay, what am I doing? Well, right now I'm sitting here in my chair and I'm like sitting like this, like in this cowering position, and I can feel all the tension and, like not right now, but this is like, sometimes I'll notice myself doing this. I'm feeling it all up in my shoulders. I'm feeling in my neck. I'm feeling this like tightness right here. I'll like drop into my body and physically feel what's happening in my body. Where am I feeling tension? Pay attention to the tension is like one of my mantras. So if I can't tell emotionally what's happening, where am I feeling it physically? And I have all kinds of, like when I first was learning this stuff, I didn't know how to identify it either, because again, it is buried by layers and masks of things that we've built onto it, or how we should be feeling or how we should be thinking, right? So sometimes that's true. And sometimes you just have to start with, what is my body like? This is like a good counter. Am I sitting in my chair completely relaxed and feeling completely carefree? No. Okay. So then what's not that? Right. And then you can start to be like, okay, well, I don't feel relaxed. Okay. Well, what part of me doesn't feel relaxed? Where am I holding that? What's the tightness? And then I can also go to, a lot of times my evidence of actions is non-actions. So I am not producing anything. I'm not wanting to walk around and pick up my house. I am not, doing anything that I might think sounds productive or whatever. I'm sitting here and I'm spinning out because of that conversation that I had, So if you can like see, like, what am I doing? You can go start there. Then you can kind of start wherever there's data, like whatever information you have, just start there and just know that that's not the whole story. Because what we want to do is we want to look at that. We want to immediately shame ourselves. Well, I'm sitting here and I'm just lazy and I'm just like, can't get organized. And I'm just, it's all, me, I'm such a problem. I'm terrible, all this stuff. And we just throw blame on it instead of being like genuinely seeing it as just information. Okay, I am currently doing this. It's coming from a feeling. I don't know what that feeling is. I wonder what that feeling might be. And just kind of walking around that information and seeing what surfaces. And I think something that really helps is like brain dumps. You've probably talked about this before, but journaling out literally everything in your brain. And a lot of people don't do this for things like they're afraid someone's going to see it. I don't care if you burn it after you do this. Like, do whatever you have to do to
get it out.
Take it out of your brain. You have to like, let's release. We need release. And so much of the time we're like, I have to keep it up there until I can perfectly organize it and make sense of it. But there's 60,000 thoughts. You're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. Okay. So,
and that's also not how brains categorize information. And I mean, we go into great detail about how brains actually work and how they categorize information and how they store memories and how they make connections. It has like nothing to do with organization.
Right.
There's no organization in your brain that would make sense to us living in the world today, because it's all about, like Allison said, keeping us safe. So, I mean, that's why brains exist, is to keep you safe. It has nothing to do with how many papers you have on your table.
Well, and one of the best things that I was ever told early on was to think of my brain as a computer processor, not as a storage unit, which has been wildly helpful for me. So whenever I'm like, oh, it's up there and I'm supposed to be doing something with it. No, it's not. It's not a storage unit. Dump it out and then let it do the processing. Once you dump it out, you kind of start to, like, if you really just let yourself write everything in your mind, the things that are the most charged emotion-wise will rise. You'll be like, whoa, that was the thing. That was the thing. There's something around this. And then you can, when I talk about reverse engineering this stuff, what you want to do is you want to actually think of it as like, okay, that is that information. That's that piece of information. And how you tell your brain to process that piece of information is what's going to change the kind of results that you end up getting. So what a lot of times what we do is we take that, and our immediate thing, like I said, is to turn to shame and judgment. Like, what is wrong with me? Have you ever done that? What is wrong with me? You ask your brain the question, what is wrong with you? It's going to give you a novel. Don't do that. Don't treat it like that kind of a processor machine. It's just software. You're choosing to tell your brain, like, run certain programs. Here, run the software that tells me I'm a terrible person. Cool. All right. No, don't do that. Like, run the software that tells me what's the information here that I need to know. What else could be true here? What, you know, it's learning how to talk to your brain differently and to make that ancient machine work in a different way for you. That's what starts giving you completely different results.
So every time you're having an aha moment, I want to see a fire emoji in the comments. I can't comment, but if I could, I would be dropping those fire emojis like crazy right now.
It's really, really cool stuff. And what's the most fun that I have with this is when I help people kind of dig into their mind, into their feelings. It's like the things we pull up, they already know. They already know these truths about themselves. But there's like not giving yourself permission to think it, or thinking it's not okay that you think that way, or that it's somehow going to give you things you don't want if you think that way. It's so wild, the ways that our brain builds up the barriers and walls to keep us from our true limitlessness.
Yeah. I did a whole lesson on, and actually I think I did a podcast too, on comfort zones, panic zones, and growth zones. And I'm convinced that we're actually not living in a comfort zone. We're living in a panic zone right now. And we got to actually get back into that comfort zone so we can go out into the growth zone safely. And that's like my personal take on all the zones. But yeah, you have to you got to clear the clutter in your brain to have forward momentum for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so fascinating. And the things, just like how you help people with clutter, right? And just how you help them kind of know, like, what's the step-by-step here of how do I pull all this out of my cabinet, and how do I think about it in these conceptual ways? You do the same thing with your thoughts. You do the same things with your thoughts and the same things with your feelings, and you can generate any kind of, you create the organization by how you think about your thinking. And your brain, that's the prefrontal cortex, right? So if you're not cognitively saying, yes, I'm going to step into taking back control here, then you're just acting out of the primal side of your brain, and you're just going to continue having pain, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you used the word lazy earlier, because lazy came up on Meredith's call yesterday. You know, a lot of people feel like I can't eat right. I don't know, I'm not successful dieting or whatever, and I must just be lazy. And Meredith was saying, we just never learned the right information. You're not lazy. And that's what I say to people all the time too. You're not lazy. Like, you just don't have the skills. Nobody ever taught you how to do this. No, your parents or your grandparents did not grow up with, 4,000 square feet full of 4,000 square feet of stuff. Like, you just don't have the skills. You just never learned it. So there's no such thing as lazy around here. Like, no, you're not lazy.
No, not at all. And that's the way that we think about ourselves changes the kind of stuff that we're able to process as well. So a whole lot of the work that I do is teaching self-concept, because we have, that's just a narrative that we've latched onto, right? Well, this narrative seems to match, so I guess this is my identity. But your identity is not set in stone by whatever words someone said at you at one point, or how you process the information of, oh, this is what I see, that must mean this about me. That's not your identity. So a lot of what we do as well is just simply getting back to the core of, like, what is real, true self-concept.
I like to say you are who you say you are, and you can change that tomorrow if you want to.
So good. Yeah.
You are. That's a Gretchen Rubin comment. You
Mhm.
are who you say you are. Your identity is whatever you make it. You choose that. Nobody else
Yeah.
chooses that for you.
Yeah. So good. Yeah, totally. I love the little things, little one-liners. Write these everywhere, right? Put them everywhere.
And like the other thing that I've noticed, and this is my own personal journey, nobody cares about what you think your identity is as much as you care about it, right? So every time I've had to shift an identity in my life, I've had all of this anxiety about becoming a new person. Like I remember when I used to in my many different things that I've done over time, when my kids were younger, I had a healthy lunchbox blog, and I was known as like the person who cooked everything from scratch. You know, that was my identity that I made for myself. And I built all of this structure around this identity to be like the healthy mom, you know, with the blog, with the whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then I got a full-time job, like out of the blue. I went back to work, and all of a sudden I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't be that identity. And I was like, I can't let people see me bringing, you know, pre-made meals or like, this is like so against who I have built up to be. So I decided one day I was going to say, I'm no longer like the mom who cooks everything from scratch. And it took me like days to actually say that to somebody. And then I said it, and they were like, okay. Like, and they walked in like, dude, I like spent like seriously, like 48 hours working up the courage to say those words. Right? You don't even care. Like, oh, okay, it's only me who cares about my identity.
Yeah, well, and we care because there's so much emotion around it, right? There's so much emotion built around the words and the sentences in our brain. And so just like self-concept is a really interesting thing, because when you are able to kind of start shifting how you see yourself and how you think of yourself, as it's like there's this stretching going on. It's like literally like I'm physically feeling myself like morph and change, and it's really uncomfortable, and I don't know if I like it, and I think I want to go back there to where that was, because it kind of feels like you're losing something when you're changing. It kind of, there's like a grief there, because as you're shifting identity, you can't also be the one that you were before. So that's there. This stuff is so cool. Like, and this is all happening inside of you. And you're right. Like nobody else really knows or cares.
Well, and also when you're starting to change and shift, so say you're becoming the person who has a lot of clutter to the person who doesn't have a lot of clutter, you actually start letting go of a lot of stuff. And then you feel, and this is actually one of the questions that came up before this call, somebody messaged me and they said, how do I get over the shame and guilt of letting go of stuff that I've paid money for? It's like, well, because now you're shifting your identity from somebody who has stuff, a lot of stuff that they paid money for, and, you know, to somebody who's letting go. And that there's like so many complicated emotions about that. Allison, how would you recommend you move forward, letting go of shame and guilt if you've paid money for stuff?
There is a lot. Well, the first thing to know is just that like that's totally normal. And I know you say this all the time, but we just tend to think of things as so linear, like, oh, I'm going to be someone who completely declutters my house now, as if it's just going to be this, yeah, I'm going to do this step-by-step thing, and then I'm going to have this completely decluttered house. But it's not ever like that. Nothing in life is linear, ever. Whenever I feel really painful about something I'm learning, it's because I realize I have gone back to thinking it was supposed to be linear. And it's just not. It's like these movements that we work through as we go in the direction.
It's totally experiential.
Completely. Yeah. So it's like it's like you have to adapt to trying on ideas. So it's like, I'm trying on this idea of I'm someone who is able to release something that I paid money for. How does that feel? So it's like you're trying it on and you're not shaming yourself about it, but you're just noticing and become very aware. And then also noticing, look at how you're feeling once it's gone. Like once that space is now cleared, that was once taken by this thing, what's the feeling that you feel? Is there like a big deep breath there? right? Is there like this kind of release or spaciousness there? And assign value to that, because that value is immensely more important, because that's what's happening internally inside of you. It's not just a physical thing that's around you. And the more that you kind of play around with that in like bits at a time, the more you build up, I do value this. I do value how I'm feeling inside with this absence instead of the thing there.
Meredith, our nutrition coach, says all the time, I'm not asking you to have shame or guilt around your diet. I'm not asking you to change everything. I'm asking you to be curious. How does this make me feel? Just be curious. Just observe and be curious. Like, what is this making me feel? How is this making me feel? No shame, no judgment, just curiosity. I love it. It's like basically exactly what you're saying. I love it.
Curiosity is like one of the most incredible tools that we have. And it takes a minute to get used to, because you kind of have to first say, if I'm recognizing shame, blame, and judgment, that's a different thing. Like that's this thing over here that I don't have to listen to. I don't necessarily even have to deal with it, but I don't have to just automatically jump into it. And then you can say, okay, so if I'm neutral, like I have to be neutral first, then I can say, I wonder what might be going on here. You have to kind of get to like a neutral place before curiosity is really possible in the terms of the shame, because that's just our natural default.
Right. Right. I have another example of when I had to shift my identity.
Yeah.
About me.
I love it.
So, and this one is very relevant to everyone who's listening. For years, I wanted to be a professional organizer, but I was raised with this notion that the only acceptable careers in life were doctor or lawyer. I actually dropped out of law school because once I figured out what a lawyer does, I was like, no, don't want to do that. And I wanted to say I'm a professional organizer, but I knew that was not part of the acceptable things that I was taught I could become, because there's no credentials to be a professional organizer. Right. There's no 8 years of school. There's no, student loans and debt at the end, like all these things that would signify that you're finally successful. Right.
Right.
So apparently it was very important. So for how many years did I help people organize, learn, ask? I mean, it's always been a huge curiosity of mine. And then finally, I was like, I want to be a professional organizer. Like, I'm just going to say, I want to do this. And then somebody pointed out to me that I have a master's degree in archival science, which is basically organized. I had never made that connection before. So
beautiful. It's beautiful.
So take that risk and be that new person, because you have no idea what happens down the road. I would never be here if I didn't be curious and take a risk and change my identity into something that I had all of this clutter around. Right.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I love that. That's so beautiful. And honestly, even just saying that the whole thing of like the doctor and lawyer is like the only options. It's still just a way to try and like put these boxes so that people feel okay, like they understand what's happening and they're in control. Like when we start to understand that there's so many options, we don't need to be so pigeonholed with our thoughts and ideas. I apologize about my dog.
My kid popped into our interview yesterday. For the record, my brother's a lawyer and my sister's a psychotherapist, so my parents got the
And you're all changing people's lives in all different ways. Yeah, I love it.
Does anyone have any questions for Allison? If you have any questions, just drop them right into the chat. If you want to share a story about identity, a struggle that you're having, feel free. Let's do it. We can even, I've never done this before, but I think I can even bring other people onto the screen if they want to talk. So,
oh, really? Oh, that would be so great.
You can just drop in the... So, okay, I'm just throwing that out there. If anybody wants to chat, just let me know. And I think I can just drop you a link and you can join our live stream, which would be really fun.
That would be really fun.
Right?
I love that. I love spontaneity. Spontaneity is one of the things that I found and then I see like everywhere and very, very common is that it's hard for people to kind of get their mind back into this playful, fun way of living. So like, that's what we miss, right? We miss being carefree and fun and playful. But that you can get back to there, like once you've peeled back a lot of these layers, and spontaneity and curiosity and fun and just being intrigued by life and finding joy everywhere, like all that stuff. That's where it's at. That's where it's at. That's what you want to get to.
It's so funny because people always say to me, "Oh, you're a professional organizer." I'd hate to do that. I have like so much fun doing this. This is the reason why, though. I never actually thought about it like that before. This is why, because it's all about, it's like, it's fun, right? We're curious, we're learning, we're growing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so fun. And that's, I think, why I latched on to what I do so much too, because it's just so fun to me. It's so fun to me to dig around in there in the unseen.
The other fascinating thing that I notice working with people for a long time is once they clear their physical clutter and they have these mindset shifts, crazy stuff happens in their life that they just never expected. Like a new career path opens, or just things happen, things appear. It's like the universe opens up and stuff starts falling from the sky. But like to get there, there's also things that happen that would maybe keep you in place, right? So there's like, you have to overcome some struggles, and it feels like at first the universe is saying, "Oh, you're not going to do this," but ultimately it's like, "Well, you did it. Like, let me give you everything that you never even knew you wanted."
Yeah, it's almost like let's just see how much you really want to go in this direction.
Yeah,
that's what I feel like all the time.
The brain is testing you. It's saying, "Really?"
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. You guys have no questions. I find that so hard to believe. Fearless. Sam says she's fearless in 2021.
Yeah. I love words of the year. Do you have a word of the year?
Yes, it's freedom.
Oh, I love that. I love that word. That's like one of my favorite words.
Last year I was tied to my desk because my business sort of like, shh. And this year I'm trying to create more freedom around everything. Just freedom in general. Just, you know, just freedom in all sorts of ways. So hello, Facebook user who just joined. You're going to have to go back and watch the replay because we've covered some really exciting stuff. Paulette says overcome is my 2021 word. All the clutter bosses have words. We spent a lot of time.
I love it. I love it. So when you take that word, do you think about it all throughout the day? Like something I think it's interesting to do is to like, how would I wake up in the morning and feel more freedom? How would I eat my lunch and feel more freedom? You know, like all the things that you're doing throughout the day.
How can you be more free? How can I feel more freedom? So I change all my passwords to like the word freedom with, you know, other characters and symbols. And but yeah, I that's a good idea. I'm going to have to ask myself before everything now, how would I feel more freedom doing this? So people are dropping their words into the chat. So we have got grace and consistency and uplift. I love all these words.
Those are so good. I love it.
I also want to say it's never too late to have a word, right? It's never too late to start. Like you don't need to do it at the beginning of the year. You could do it right now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Whenever you're watching, this is the right time.
Absolutely.
My word is big. I want expansion.
I love that.
I want big ideas and big spaces and big community, like everything been looking at with that word. Yeah.
BIG. I love it.
Yeah.
You're going to be the notorious Allison. Okay, so we have a question, Allison.
Yes.
Oh, we also have another word. Let me share the word first because it's a freaking awesome word. Okay, Facebook user says, my word is no. I say yes to everything. Say no to things that sit in my space, my life, or block my productivity. I love the word no.
The word no is a complete sentence. It is a great word.
Great word. Okay, so here is another question from a Facebook user. What are things you do to reset your mindset at the start of the day? That's a good question.
So I feel like I really like the idea of finding what works for you. I have found that I love my morning times. And so some of my biggest growth this year has happened because I started waking up earlier. And the thing that worked so well with it is that I just gave myself space before I had anything else of the day that started to kind of come in. You know, my mind was fresh off of sleep and nothing of the day has started happening yet. So there was just this spacious feeling of I can just kind of find out what's still lingering around in there and do some journaling and kind of do some exploring with no pressure to produce, no pressure to come to any conclusion, no pressure to completion, but just to have like this space for myself. That's been an enormous self-care thing that I started. But that you can find it anywhere. I mean, I used to like not wake up early, but I would wash my face and use cream that I loved. And that used to be my thing when my kids were little. Like I literally didn't have any time, but I loved it. And it was something I was doing specifically for me. So that's, I think, something when you think about like resetting your time, it's really just kind of about like claiming your time and making sure that you're thinking about yourself and what you want, no matter how much time that might be that feels good, just claim it as yours. Like my son, I've told him, I was like, you can come in and say hi. I'll say cuddle you in here, but I'm not doing anything until this time. So just like staking your claim around whatever particular thing you want to do. That's the biggest thing.
We have a clutter boss, Keely, so I taught a lesson on miracle mornings, which was one tool that I used. And if you don't know what a miracle morning is, you can go and Google it. There's like a massive cult-like following around miracle morning. Yeah. But it was one tool that I used when I really was in a period of trying to figure out my own clutter and my own life and my own, mental health and all of that. And where you basically get up early and go through these 6 steps. So Keely has started doing miracle mornings. She finally committed to it and started. She does miracle mornings and I think blissful bedtimes. Or we've been playing around with the name at the end of the day, but I swear she's like a different person. I mean, she looks different, sounds different, and it's only been like 2 weeks. She just has this whole different aura about her. When she goes into calls, her voice literally sounds different. So finding that space in the morning is absolutely incredible. Another little tip, if you're trying to get up early, that really works for me, is to use this app called Sleep Cycle. So basically, one of the problems that I was having actually waking up was I would wake up and like my alarm would go off in the middle of like the worst part of my sleep. And I would feel just like sick and groggy and I would not get up. Sleep Cycle actually tracks your breathing and it gently wakes you up at the optimal time during a sleep cycle. And I swear that made all the difference to waking up early.
Wow. I'm going to check that out.
That's awesome.
I did change something in that I didn't put my phone next to my bed. Do you have to put your phone next to your bed if
you do, but it disables everything. So right. So you don't get any interruptions. I know that's awesome. Like the negative of it is you have to actually turn it on and not turn it off.
So all you need there is just like one tiny little like boundary for yourself about I'm going to bed, but I'm not touching my phone. I'm just setting it there.
Absolutely. Yes, Andrea, it's so much more pleasant than waking up to an alarm. Okay, we have another question.
Yeah.
Hold on. I need help to overcome the shame of not letting my neighbor come into my living room because I haven't decluttered it yet. I let her into my semi-decluttered rooms only. She is willing to help me, but I am not ready yet. How do I get over it?
So the neighbor is wanting to help. That's the story. Okay. So the question really is, if the feeling there is a whole bunch of resistance to the help, what is it coming from? I'm guessing it's some kind of fear. So what's helpful is to see what feelings and thoughts are always intertwined. They're like this joint thing, and they go together. And we feel things, but we don't always know why we're feeling them. But there's always a thought attached to every single emotion that we're having. So when you can see what's happening, and you see, like, I see this person who wants to help me. I can't let her go past this state because I'm feeling this shame or this fear. You have to find out, like, what is the thought that my brain is telling me? What is my brain telling me that I need to avoid here? Like, what is it that I'm trying to avoid? A lot of times the thoughts are very deep wounds. So it's something along the lines of, I can't ask for help, or it's all my fault, or it's all my responsibility, and kind of finding out what is the thought that's really keeping me from this, because it's always the thought that's giving you any kind of actions that you're doing. So if the actions are like, I'm saying no to help, it's coming from some thought. So when you can find the thought, that's where you find out where the power source is. And you can do some, the best thing to do is to just really say, okay, I'm having this thought. My brain really thinks that this thought is true. Whatever it is, like people are unsafe, or this should all be my responsibility, or, whatever it is that's coming back to. My brain is telling me that's true, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. I don't even like to think of thoughts as true or false. I like to think of them as serving or not serving. So if the thought is keeping you from getting help that you would want, it's not serving you. So you'd have to do some thought work around disempowering that thought. Like, why is it true that thought isn't true? Like, turn your brain processor in a different direction. Like how is it possible that what I'm thinking there is not at all the facts that's going on? Does that make sense? You like, the thought is the thing that's got the gripping power, but you can disempower thoughts.
That was another fire emoji. You can disempower thoughts.
You can.
That's so important to keep in mind.
Because your brain is telling you you can't. Your brain wants to tell you that every single thought you have is true, solid facts. You have 60,000 thoughts a day. They are not true, solid facts. If it's anything that somebody else might have a disagreement about, then it's just a thought. And you can say, I'm holding on to this thought, and I don't have to. It can be something that I can just like set to the side. Maybe I could dive into that maybe another time, a little bit later with some help, probably.
I'm going to donate that thought.
Donate that to the crash. They do have this way of coming back, because your brain, there was some study out there that was like, you have 60,000 thoughts a day, and like 95% of them are recycled and negative. Like, they're the same on repeat, and they're mostly negative. But it's just thoughts. And when you really, really understand that your brain's functioning is to try and just keep you safe. And if your brain had its way, it would keep you like closed off in this room away from everybody for the rest of your life, right? That's how your brain sees safety. So you don't have to live out of that, though. It's almost like, thank you, primal brain, for all of your efforts. I'm going to step into my adult brain now that has these greater capacities.
It's just, I mean, oh my gosh, it's all clutter. We have so much stuff in the world today, and we haven't caught up as a species to, like, because hoarding is definitely an evolutionary advantage. Primal brain is an evolutionary advantage. It hasn't caught up to living in the world that we live in today. We just haven't had that evolutionary time. Like, we're like playing a big game of catch up right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's any more questions, drop them in there. We'll go maybe another couple of minutes. And then as I wait, because I know there's that little delay, I'm just going to remind everyone what I reminded in the beginning, but there was only 2 people on the call then. Now there's like way more. So we have our normal Clutter Foundation's coaching call today at noon Eastern time in the Zoom room, same as every single week, not different. So if you have any questions, we'll be in the Zoom room at noon. The link is basically everywhere, but if you can't find it, just ask. We also have a surprise extra interview today with my favorite mini boss, Hannah, who is a 6-year-old who actively participates in all of our decluttering and would love to share her thoughts with you. So we'll be doing that at 1:30. Tomorrow is the drawing for the scholarship to Clutter Boss Academy. So if you are interested in joining us, and it's also when we're opening up the doors for the next, you can join for 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months. So if you're interested in that, we are announcing the scholarship winner tomorrow. The doors are open. They're only open for 4 days because this is like, we got to get everyone in and ready to go. If you're interested in that, that all happens tomorrow. If you're interested in the scholarship, please make sure you email me so I can add you to the list. It's Jess, Jes, one S. I decluttered the other S. Jess at prioritizeyouresanity.com. Not prioritize my sanity. Somebody's been sending me email there for a long time.
I love all your little caveats.
Okay, so the last question, and this is a good one. We're going to end on this really good question. How to work around the mental game of disappointment.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Before Allison answers, I have a whole podcast on expectation hangovers, which are basically disappointment. Ooh. Go ahead and listen to that. And we'll see what Allison has to say.
I was going to say something along those same lines. Disappointment is all stemming from expectation. So it's this, and I don't know like your specific scenario. So I'm kind of speaking generally. So if it doesn't completely match, don't take that as this doesn't work for me. But in general, we feel disappointment when we have a narrative in our mind, we have a script in our mind of how something is supposed to go. And this is the thing about humanity that like people don't seem to, like, we just don't really realize is going on under the surface. Every single one of us has a script in our mind. We are like, I'm the director, and this is how this is going to go. And this is what this person is going to say. And this is what this person is going to do. And this is how I want this script to look. This is like the manual of what I expect this scenario it would look like in a good way, or this thing that would make me feel good. Or the thing to understand is that everything we want is always coming back to a feeling. There's some feeling that we want from whatever scenario that we're building up in our mind of what we're, imagining into existence if we can. But that always acts out of this idea that as if we had control over that, as if we were the director, and we're not the director because everybody thinks they're the director. So as soon as it doesn't play out in our mind how we wanted it to go, that's disappointment, because we think reality or what we've experienced, the circumstance of what we experienced, should not be that. Whenever you're fighting with reality, that's where you're feeling disappointment and pain. When you start to kind of find, okay, what are the thoughts that I have here about how this scenario should have looked? Why did I think it should have looked that way? What was I hoping to feel on the other side of that? That gives you, all those questions gives you more insight into what is it you really wanted here. And you're not ever tied to any circumstance that happens. So a lot of disappointment comes also from feeling about like we're hopeless, like it has to play out exactly like this script in order for us to be safe, get our needs met, feel what we need to feel. And that the disappointment has a lot more to do with like it feels like loss. It feels like grief. It feels like I have no control here. But we always have control in what we do with ourselves and what we do with our physical body and what we do with our internal body. We always actually do have control. So coming back to the point of where is the thing that I have control over, and what do I want to do in this situation to find out like, what is it I'm needing? What is it I'm wanting to feel? How do I reach those things and give those things to myself rather than attaching it to something outside of me? That's where you start to get control back over the disappointing feelings.
I often think that communication really aids in managing your disappointment. Oftentimes, a little bit of communication at the beginning, right, can kind of lead you to the result that you want. Oftentimes, we just don't advocate for ourselves. This is my expectation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also a lot of the times we don't advocate for ourselves because we don't properly understand boundary lines. So you can advocate for yourself, and you should advocate for yourself. And you should allow that someone else is going to have their own opinions and their own thoughts and their own feelings and their own actions, and that those are two separate spaces. And as much as you allow yourself to hold this space of my opinions and my expectations and what I want and my requests, you also allow them to hold that as well. So it's just a matter of, okay, like it's going to be sad if this looks different, if we have very different opinions here, but I'm still going to be okay because it doesn't mean I'm like stuck to that in particular environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, this was like just so full of so much juicy content, Allison. I actually think I might go back and write down some of the things that you said. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And thank you, Allison, so much for giving us your time and your expertise and your incredible wisdom. I hope this was helpful. And if you watch the replay, make sure you comment in the replay because we go back and read all the comments also. And if you guys are joining in for the noontime clutter coaching, I will see you in the Zoom room then.
Thanks so much for having me. Good to see you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.